Hard to believe it, but we are on episode 84 already, and we have a really awesome topic for you guys today, and we have a very special guest. We have Dr. Pompa here, of course, and we are welcoming Dr. Philip Blair to the show. So how are you doing, Dr. Blair?
Excellent. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, well, thank you so much for being here. We have such an amazing topic for you all today, and we will be discussing CBD oil. And if you don't know what that is, you're going to find out a lot about it in this show. So stay tuned because it's a really, really hot topic. And Dr. Blair is here, and he's going to be kind of explaining the benefits, just a lot of the intricacies of this really exciting compound that we're learning about, and some of the products that it's being used in that can benefit your health. So Dr. Blair is here from Elixinol, which is a company that produces CBD oil products, and he has a history as a family physician, as an MD, and as a retired Army doctor. So you know, he was in the Army. He joined it in 1968, he said, and graduated from West Point. So pretty conservative background, and now he is in the business of you know, helping people get their hands on CBD oil, which he's going to tell us about. So,
you made it sound illegal. You made it sound illegal. That's going to be one of the questions people have, Meredith.
Maybe I didn't say that in the right way, but it is legal, this product, and we're really excited to talk to you about it. So maybe I'll just stop and let you, Dr. Blair, and explain to us about CBD oil and kind of your background and how you got into it, and then kind of what it is.
Well, Dr. Blair, I have to admit, you have to kind of recover after that. It sounds like you're smuggling something in from Mexico. I'm just saying, no, but that was a great introduction. I loved it. Couldn't have been better. CBD, Cannabidiol oil. How the heck did you get into this from being a conservative medical doctor, you know, West Point grad? Come on, Doc. How did it happen? I don't know if you know.
Well, you know, primarily, like you, Dr. Pompa, I'm a scientist, and I'm looking for solutions as to help people with their serious medical problems that, and we're facing such an epidemic of vast consequences in all different areas, and none of the standard traditional medicine has really been effective for that. I used to think that the practice of medicine was absolutely stalwart, that there was hundreds of studies to prove the point that these things were effective. But as I've practiced over the last 30 years, I've realized that's not the case, that many of these problems are undertreated and poorly served by the standard medical therapy. So when I discovered cannabidiol, and I realized, and I saw the impact and reviewed the literature, along with the fact that it was cannabidiol from hemp is not illegal. In fact, it's quite legal. It can be shipped anywhere. The benefits were extraordinary in all of the studies that had been done. Unfortunately, most of them had been done on animals and cell cultures, but there were no toxic effects. They could not find a toxic dose, nor were there any significant side effects from this, and yet the benefits were legion in terms of their scope and what they could do in all different areas. I think the best concept is that CBD, cannabidiol, activates and normalizes the body function at a organ level and as a cellular level, and so you get all of these particular benefits and restoration of function that may have been lost as a result of our diet or environment and our poor habits that have occurred in the past. So as a scientist, discovering that this incredible substance was available and could be distributed at minimal charge was extraordinary, and then the benefits. And as soon as I started using it for different patients and the clients that I was working with, I was amazed at the overwhelming positive response that I got from so many people.
Yeah, you know, I mean, we almost might have to even back up for some folks, right? I mean, you know, there's been so much buzz about legalizing marijuana. and cannabidiol CBD oil is part of that, right? I mean, so let's back up and say, what is cannabidiol? What is cannabis oil, CBD oil, whatever we're going to call it, and how does it differ from what's out there? Everyone's trying to legalize marijuana. How does this differ from that? And go ahead and educate them on that, Doc.
Well, Meredith, one of the things you pointed out was the confusion between legalities and things that what is it with relationship to the law. Now, the first thing I want to mention here is that cannabidiol comes from a plant. It's what they call a Phyto Cannabinoid. And so we're talking about a class of medications or class of substances called cannabinoids. And these substances are actually located or found in a number of different plants, including flax seed oil, as well as hemp seed oil, as well as marijuana. Now, you've heard a lot of the news articles and the miraculous stories and healing that has gone on with medical marijuana. The focus on the medical marijuana is actually on the CBD portion of it.
Yes.
So that there's a lot, and so they want to lower the THC. I need to step back, though. I need to take you back to the beginning. I was talking about the phytocannabinoids, and so they're available in plants, and they've been that way a long time. But they are not unique compounds to the body, because the body has its own cannabinoid system already there, that it was actually only recently discovered in 1992. In medical years, that's a very short time.
Wow.
But at that time, they realized that this cannabinoid system, called the endocannabinoid system, is one that normalizes, and it seems to be the master controller for so many different parts of the body, not only in terms of neurologic activity and immunologic activity, but also in terms of metabolic function and overall cellular function. And frankly, we've just touched the tip of the iceberg in terms of the benefits and the possibilities with regard to cannabidiol. So what cannabidiol does is it activates that endocannabinoid system in a very positive way. It has no psychoactive effects. It has no significant adverse effects, and it doesn't interact with any of the other medications that are out there, so it's safe to use in all ages, including children with seizure disorders and adults. And there has been quite a bit of discussion with regard to pregnancy, about its involvement in pregnancy, although that is really as yet totally undefined.
Yeah, I find it interesting because, all the hype about legalizing marijuana, it's really, differentiating the CBD from the THC, which gives the high. The THC is the psychological effect that occurs. Doc, I mean, it's amazing to me that they haven't just said, look, I mean, let's legalize the CBD, with zero THC, like the product that we use, right? It's 18% cannabidiol, 18% CBD oil with zero THC. I mean, why not differentiate this?
Because, well, it should be differentiated. It should be quickly differentiated, but we're using some terms here that make it confusing. Number one is the term cannabis. Well, what does cannabis mean? Well, that's the genus for marijuana and hemp. Now, it's like looking at a dog. I mean, they may be the same genus, but it's not the same dog. It's not identical. They do different things. But people can't seem to get that. And unfortunately, the law, as specific as it tends to be, most of the time, doesn't really address this, except when you get into the details, and then it focuses on the psychoactive substances like THC and some of the synthetic THC-like chemicals that cause a psychoactive effect and cause that high. Whereas CBD does not do any of that stuff. It doesn't have any of those psychoactive effects, and it is totally benign. And yet, it's bundled with the term cannabis, and therein lies the major confusion. I think the other factor that's really important is money. Money in the sense that the governments, the state governments who are into this game are recognizing a huge amount of revenue as a result of controlling and managing and being involved with cannabis in total. And that means that when they find a very high quality product that is truly beneficial, they have the opportunity to tax it to the point where they can restore their coffers. And I think that is the big factor, plus the confusion about THC and CBD and the other cannabinoids and how they work.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that distinction really does need to be made. And is this true? I mean, people talk about marijuana. The original marijuana plant had very little THC and more CBD. And of course, today now it's been bred to obviously have more THC and less CBD, which then whereas the health benefits go, get less and less as they breed the higher THC. Is that true?
You're exactly right. The breeding of the plants has created some incredibly strong psychoactive marijuana at this point, to the point where we're seeing complications, major complications, in terms of activation of psychosis and psychiatric disorders from using this. And I'll let you on to the area I'm in Washington State. However, there seems to be a shift among growers to go back to the CBD area. So I think you're going to be seeing a lot more emphasis on CBD in the grow areas, and because of the marked improvements and health benefits that go along with the CBD with the low THC.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Meredith, I know you have some questions too, and obviously we want to talk about these benefits. We've been talking about how great this is. Look, I mean, obviously there's a component here, right? I mean, this fight to legalize marijuana, it should be, the fight about CBD, how to get it out to the planet. It's already legal. It's like this is the benefiting effect here. And that's what we need to talk more about. So. Meredith, I know you had some questions too, because you get a lot of the calls, I'm sure, Meredith, right? You get a lot of people asking the questions that, that we carry, this oil that everyone's been raving about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. And I didn't realize that today's marijuana plants were being genetically bred to contain more THC than CBD. So that's a really interesting fact that I learned, and I think it's really exciting too that they would start to breed these plants back to have more of the CBD than the THC, which is just very cool. So it was a great thing that I learned. But but I get a lot of calls and questions about this oil and the tinctures that you actually offer as well. But before we kind of get into the products, can you just talk a little bit more about some of the specific benefits and some of the specific conditions that that CBD could potentially positively impact?
Sure. Probably the most common condition that I hear people talking about is anxiety. They are so anxious, and that goes through a full spectrum that goes all the way to PTSD. But for many people, with our hubbub world, it creates an environment of constant anxiety and inability to relax. So the CBD has direct effects on the neurotransmitters to calm that response and put people at ease and relax them. The other area that is particularly valuable, I've seen consistently, is neuropathic pain. That is a major problem that we are encountering in our society with people with chronic levels of pain and on top of that, there's been the withdrawal of support for use of narcotics. And so that opioids are less and less available. You have to see a specialist for them, tightly controlled. Even so, we have an epidemic of overdoses that are occurring with it. What I've seen in most cases is the ability of CBD to reduce the doses of narcotics by 80%. And prevent any withdrawal symptoms that go along with it. And I've seen the same thing for some of the other medications that are involved with pain medications, pain therapy as well. So those are the two big areas that I see.
Yeah, and I think you'll get into others here because, you know, I mean, I've just been astounded how much it's helped, you know, my clients and the feedback with, you know, we treat a lot, we see a lot of unexplainable illnesses where there's just no explanation. They have anxiety, they can't sleep, and, you know, obviously pain and, you know, a lot of bizarre neurological deficits because we see many people with neurotoxic illness driven by neurotoxins. And so much of the research that I've been reading, Doc, you know, is really how cannabis, you know, is affecting nerve regeneration, you know, and linked into Alzheimer's, which is a massive epidemic that I'm going to be talking about doing a lecture in Atlanta on. So, you know, talk a little bit about that because that sure is a lot of what we see.
Well, you touched on a very important topic, and that is sleep. And so many people are having difficult time with sleep. Amazingly, cannabidiol has a profound effect in improving people's sleep. People who have not had a full night's sleep suddenly report to me that, oh, by the way, I'm sleeping better than I've ever slept before, which is a great bonus and such a huge advantage. I think it's something that many people, especially with this day and age of so many different types of sleeping medications that are out there, that this would be an outstanding replacement for that sort of thing. And then with regard to regeneration, I think that is a very, very important topic. Not only is it in the sense of working on nerve cells and preventing their degradation, as well as restoring their ability to regenerate, but it also applies to other tissues. There is evidence in the literature that says that it'll impact the pancreatic beta cells, and there may be some increases in the beta cell mass as a result of using cannabidiol.
Wow. So diabetes, you know, I mean, and I know that it affects the cell membrane, which we talk a lot about. So therefore, it would have a positive effect on type 2 diabetes, which is the insulin receptor, and really just about any hormone receptor. I mean, you can talk a little bit about that research. But you're saying the beta cell as well, which would impact even people pushing to type 1 diabetes. So, you know, and again, we're just only able to quote the literature, not making claims. But, you know, that's what the literature is showing. That's amazing.
Well, the animal studies do show that cannabidiol appears to increase the beta cell mass. But even if we don't have good solid evidence for that, we do have important evidence to show that the cannabidiol is protective against the pancreatic beta cell destruction, so that if you still have beta cell function, as in typically in your type 2s or early in your type 1s, you can preserve what's already there.
Wow, yeah, that's powerful. I mean, that really is. I mean, it's showing that it also must have an effect on autoimmune, you know, in some respect. I mean, obviously just in the sense that it downregulates inflammation. But is there another connection with autoimmune?
Well, the autoimmune program and system is CBD has specific receptors in autoimmune cells, so it goes right to those two major areas in the neurologic as well as the nerve cells and for the immune cells. And cannabidiol is absolutely extraordinary in its ability to downregulate the inflammatory cytokines, those signaling molecules that tell something to get inflamed, at the same time as boosting up those molecules that are involved in anti-inflammation. And so you get this wonderful balance of increase in the anti-inflammatory, whereas a decrease in the inflammatory component. So you're getting the best of both worlds on inflammatory systems. And as you've alluded to, my belief, and I think it's borne out, is that we can find inflammatory component in almost all of our major diseases.
Yeah.
And so the pathway, the final common pathway with so many problems, whether it's Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, cancer of any type, we're talking about an inflammatory pathway that is involved.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. You know, let me tell you how I was actually really got the positive, you know, enough positive about CBD that I was like, okay, I've got to really start researching this. One of my clients was a young boy, and from California, and he was down to maybe 5 foods at best that he could eat. That's how his gut, how bad his leaky gut was, and he had Crohn's, colitis, major gut issues, major autoimmune, and we had progressed him to a point and we just kind of stalled. And he got some CBD, and I'm telling you, within days, Doc, within days, he was able to eat foods that he was never able to eat and not react. Within a month, he was literally eating basically a standard healthy diet, not a standard American diet by any means, but he was eating foods without getting inflamed, without reacting. It calmed his nerve system down that much. It took that much inflammation out of his gut. I mean, it was just remarkable, to where then from that, I was on the CBD research hunt. And, thank God I was led to, because there's a lot of bad CBD out there. There's a lot of products that claim CBD but do not have the guaranteed 18% that Elixinol does. Probably, I mean, you don't really actually work for Elixinol. I mean, you're their medical expert, but you can talk a little bit about that relationship. But their product is 100% organic. The product is guaranteed at 18% CBD, which again is different than most products that are on the market right now.
Well, like you, I discovered the Cannabidiol and said, I've got to research this. I've got to find out more about it. And then I got into the product, and I wanted to verify that in fact it was organically grown, that it was produced in a wholesome and non-modified. It didn't use any chemicals, solvents that could be toxic in any way, and that it didn't have any pesticides. And I mean, those are premier. If you're going to be introducing this to the body as a therapeutic agent, you definitely want to make those things. And I reviewed all of that information specifically for Elixinol, and it came up whistle clear, clean in terms of the product. And then, of course, using it on myself and my family, I've seen the restoration without any ill effects using that. So having done the research on it and sampled the product and seen this particular product, absolutely have to verify the quality of what I've seen specifically with Elixinol. And yet you see in the literature there is quite a bit of consternation about some of the other products that are available on the market, and reports that have indicated that they may contain some other types of problems, or they don't contain significant amounts of CBD.
Yeah, and that's the active ingredient. So people buy hemp oil. Well, the question is great. I mean, how much CBD is really in hemp oil? I would argue that most hemp oil on the market has very little CBD. At least there's no active dose anyway.
Well, and that's the first thing I do when I talk to a client that says, oh, CBD doesn't work. Well, what were you using? And I clarify exactly what that is. And for you as a practitioner, it's really important for you to have a high-quality substance that you know is going to be guaranteed to provide the benefits. If it's going to provide the benefits, it's got to have the substance in it. So yeah. I understand the importance of the reliability of the Elixinol product.
Yeah, and Meredith, pretty soon here we'll show some of those products, and we'll kind of let the doctor talk here a little bit about how he uses those. But talk a little bit about, Doc, just some things you've seen in your practice, some other conditions, and we get a lot of people who have unexplainable illnesses watching this show. So what are some of the other conditions? What have you seen in your practice?
Well, first off, Dr. Pompa, I want to mirror exactly your experience with inflammatory bowel disease. Mm-hmm. Just spectacular results and improvements from people who are suffering greatly, to the point where I did the research in terms of the biochemistry that's involved with tumor necrosis factor blockers. Yeah. Now, these are substances that are like Embrel, that are used as either injections that cost on the order of $4,000 to $5,000 a month. And these are injections that people are getting on a weekly basis. And only about 50% really benefit from using these particular products because of the side effects and the toxic effects. Whereas what I've seen with the CBD is a complete reversal of all of these inflammatory conditions of the gut. You know that I mentioned that the two areas that CBD is focused on that we know about are the nerve cells and the inflammatory cells. Well, guess what? The gut is loaded with both of those things. Yeah. In fact, is probably the greatest mediator for a lot of our psychology and our behavior and our well-being coming from the gut. So very important topic area and extraordinary results with all manner of inflammatory bowel disease. And I can see CBD could be absolutely replace tumor necrosis factor blockers very easily in the whole situation of treating people with severe gut diseases.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I know you see a lot with Alzheimer's and dementia, which to me is a very exciting topic. If anything can fix the brain, yeah, this is something that's extremely powerful.
And the results that I've seen with Alzheimer's have been nothing short of phenomenal. People who were lost, who had very little communication, who were confused constantly, started on CBD, and they become aware, they become alert, they restore function that they had lost. Reversals of this are not uncommon. I used to think that what is lost and it cannot be restored. But what I've seen with several of these patients is a significant improvement and restoration to the point where I had one gentleman who was an 82-year-old Korean War veteran tell me that before CBD he was a vegetable, but after using CBD his life has come alive again, and he's so grateful for this opportunity.
Yeah, I know.
And that's with no other changes other than taking the CBD oil. No lifestyle changes, diet changes. That's exclusively just taking the oil. Those changes occur.
That's correct. There are no other therapies that are involved. If anything, there may be a decrease in the other medications that they would be taking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of our popular topics is autism. We have a lot of folks that watch this show that have children with autism-related disorders. I mean, my gosh, you can't throw a stone and not hit a home with being affected by a child on the autism spectrum today. Talk a little bit about with your experiences that you've seen with autism-related disorders.
That's great. Autism is another one of those conditions that has a dramatic, can be dramatically affected by CBD. We've seen some extraordinary cases as a result. I think that autism is another one of those more or less abandoned conditions that we really don't have any solutions for. A lot of medications are thrown at these kids that actually make them worse in terms of lethargic, non-communicative, difficult to handle. I guess they're sedate, but they don't really function. What we have done is to use this cannabidiol with patients with autism and autism spectrum with some stunning results. We're seeing a restoration. Now, autism is a very complex disorder, but what most people want to have is a recovery from some of the repetitive, obsessive activities that these children tend to do. And CBD has been very effective with that, improving communication and producing a calming effect on the children, as well as improving sleep. And every parent is ever so grateful for improving their sleep quality.
Well, when you look at autism, we know that both brains are affected, right? This brain and the one down here, the gut. And, we're talking about a product that research shows affects both brains. We're talking about how it affects the brain, in Alzheimer's, and there's research, Parkinson's, etc. And then we're talking about how it heals inflammatory gut. So, I mean, it is a perfect product. I mean, when it comes to these brain-gut disorders, which, we know autism is one of them. So, yeah, I mean, it really is amazing. When I see, you talk about pain, I literally have had clients who, they were on major medications just to deal with the neuropathies or the pain that they were, dealing with, and were able to get off those, just they worked with their doctor to get off them because their pain levels went down so much because of the CBD oil. Talk about some of the cellular effects. I mean, on this show, we're all about you fix the cell, you get well. Cannabis oil, for it to have these types of effects so strongly, with people's health and symptoms, obviously it's doing something at the cellular level, Doc.
Absolutely. We still don't know all of the mechanisms that are involved, but I've counted at least 20, and there are probably another dozen mechanisms of how CBD works. And I alluded to the endocannabinoid system and its complex interaction with all of these other systems in the body. At a cellular level, we're seeing effects on mitochondria, as well as cell production, as well as permeability of the membrane of the cell. So you're getting many of these benefits. Now, looking at some of the specific things that we know about, for instance, we know that ketones are very effective or very healthy to the body. Well, if you look at some of the mechanisms that are involved, that CBD works like ketones in many respects. Now, another area that we talk about is omega-3s. Clearly, omega-3s have significant benefit. Well, how do they work? Turns out that CBD is working on a similar mechanism, and the omega-3 works in the same way. Omega-3s actually are precursors for cannabinoids within the system, and CBD activates those cannabinoids, the endocannabinoid system, as well as working in the same pathway. So you get a merging of effects for these healthy benefits that we know are there, as well as the intracellular effect. And then the intracellular, I know, is where you want me to focus, Dr. Pompa, and I have to validate that there are changes at in the cytoplasm. Of course, the cellular structure and the manufacturing mechanism for proteins, as well as enzymes, and then I alluded to the mitochondria, which are your powerhouse and your energy store, as well as balancing the inflammatory and anti-inflammatory effects that come from the mitochondria, but it also occurs at the nucleus. There are communication and control and factors that CBD stimulates on that nucleus that help facilitate the proper production of chemicals and enzymes and substances that need to be produced in that cell. For example, one of the big problems that you run into in Alzheimer's disease is a creation of some abnormal products, abnormal folding of amyloid beta, which tends to occur and cause scarring and inflammation within the brain. Well, CBD blocks that function within the cell at the nuclear level and also at several other levels, so you get a normalizing and a reduction of beta amyloid in the Alzheimer's clients.
Wow. I tell you what, that's amazing. I mean, you literally just hit our number 2. We're talking about the cell membrane. Our number 3, when you're talking about the mitochondria, cellular energy, and our number 4, inflammation. And let me tell you something, if it's having that effect that you said, at the nucleus, that means it's having an effect on the DNA. So I guarantee you some way it affects methylation, which is our number 5. So it's absolutely amazing. But when you look at the results that people get with it, to me it's not amazing, because I know it has to affect, the cell in a dramatic way, because you don't get well until you fix the cell. So, pretty amazing stuff, Doc.
Well, and that's a really good point, that it is affecting the DNA and the translation to those functional enzymes that work within our body. The nucleus of the cell holds the DNA, which is the pattern for delivering the right enzymes to the body. What we see in Alzheimer's, well, not so much in Alzheimer's, but in autism, is and certain types of seizure disorders, is that there is a transcription error that is occurring from the DNA to the performance and the creation of different proteins and enzymes. What CBD does is seems to facilitate. So you actually have a restoration of cellular function as well as the organ function with the use of CBD. It normalizes the folding of the proteins or the enzymes, becomes normalized to the point that they can function. That's why we believe that there is such a profound effect in autism. And the same is true probably for epilepsy, where especially dealing with a number of these congenital diseases that are going on, although there's many other mechanisms involved.
You know, it's interesting. We're talking about different conditions, but I had met someone here in Park City, which is like a mecca for different athletes, and they're starting to use CBD to help recover from exercise. So these are healthy, elite athletes using CBD to recover, because, you know, I always say, you know, in the training world, it's not what you do in the gym or on the field. You know, it is what you do after. It's all about recovery. You know, in hearing all the cellular effects that really, you know, that it's linked to, it doesn't surprise me that these athletes are getting, you know, amazing results that they are with the recovery from CBD. So yeah, I mean, so it's not just about sick people. You know, it's amazing. You know, we used to have an amazing relationship with plants. You know, humans and plants had this incredible relationship. You know, and we talked a little bit about it, Meredith, last week, right, when we talked about infertility. And there's so many plants that play into different hormone receptors that help our body in this perfect balance. You know, and that is, I think so much of it is we're missing some of these really amazing phytochemicals like this one at the cellular level. And it really is amazing when you restore that human cell relationship with the plant.
Well, I think the topic of athletes and using CBD is extraordinarily valuable. As I told you, the CBD seems to activate a number of the mechanisms for ketones and the same process involved with the cell. And as you no doubt have experienced, you see that patients who, athletes who use a low carbohydrate approach and have established ketosis have phenomenal recoveries to the point where you're seeing that people after ultra-marathon runs of 100 miles are able to get back and run within a day of their exposure to that. So I see CBD as working along the same lines as that natural process that's already there.
Yeah, you know, it's remarkable. I don't even know if you know this. I mean, you know, utilizing keto adaptation is one of the tools that we use to downregulate cellular inflammation. Every summer, Doc, I go into ketosis myself for athletic reasons, because I literally can ride miles and miles and, you know, without even eating food, because I have as thin as I am, I have 80,000 calories stored in fat that my body's able to dig into when you're in that ketotic state. And yes, you know, I utilize ketosis for many different brain conditions as a tool, because the brain loves ketones. You know, ketones downregulate brain inflammation. Ketones do magic at the cell. You know, the fat burns cleaner than glucose. So we utilize that. It even upregulates longevity genes. It turns on, ketones turn on those good genes. And hearing you say that cannabis oil does a similar thing to ketones, I've never heard that, you know, comparison, but man, I tell you what, I'm coming out of my seat right now, because, you know, I get that relation. I understand the power of the ketone, right, Meredith? I mean, you know, we believe strongly in the power of the ketone, you know, and just making that comparison excites me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you mentioned something important there. I thought it just parallel. You say, well, the relationship that we've had with plants. The cannabinoids are also found in truffles and echinacea. And those are truffles are something that people have incredible craving for and a passion for that is really hard to define. And then echinacea, you know, it has clear health benefits in terms of reducing inflammatory condition, viral infections. And there's an example of a plant that uses that in its power to benefit humans in several different ways.
My wife just wrote an article. She interviewed the top chef at an amazing restaurant in Atlanta who is an expert in truffles. And she just wrote an article on her blog about truffles and, you know, different things. And it's neat to hear that as one of the health benefits. That's pretty neat.
Well,
So Meredith, maybe we should show the products, and then Doc, maybe you could give a little feedback on how you use them, whether it's pain, whether it's anxiety, how to dose it, what you use. So do you want to show the products, and then you can comment, Doc?
Let me grab the products while you guys start talking, and then I will have them to show. So 1 second.
So anyways, I'll say this while she's gone. We carry them, on obviously our website. Obviously, we already discussed the fact that it is legal. However, Meredith will probably remind you that we want to call, and Meredith will tell you how to do that for the products. Meredith, you can't order them directly off of our website. You actually have to call. Is that correct?
Right. At this time, yes. If you are interested in these products that we're going to talk about, we have the oil here in a syringe form, and then we have a tincture as well. So you can call us at 888-600-0642, and we can get the products to you. But
by the way, a lot of our doctors, clients, and patients watch the show. So I'm sure that if your doctor is connected to us, they probably carry it in their clinic as well. So check there as well. Okay.
So in terms of dosing, the oil that.
Is he there? Did he freeze?
Did we lose you?
I'm here.
Okay. All right, great. All right, it seemed to cut out a little bit. Okay.
I stopped. I thought I had a signal.
Okay. I was just telling her to hold up to each product which one you talk about, just so they can understand.
Well, I think the first thing we'll talk about is the paste, or what comes in a syringe, and this is a highly concentrated form of CBD. It's got 1,800 milligrams that's in the syringe of 10 milliliters. So you're talking about 180 milligrams of CBD within each milliliter. What I found is that for more serious conditions, particularly epilepsy or autism or some of these major problems, then the more concentrated doses have to be given, and this is probably the most effective way of using that. For certain types of conditions, we'll recommend, I typically recommend about 5 milligrams per kilogram to do that kind of calculation. But for other minor conditions, you don't need nearly as much, and we talk about using as little as what we call a grain of rice, just a little dab onto a finger or a spoon or to a piece of wax paper, and slip that into the mouth and try to hold it in the mouth for as long as you can to absorb it through the mucous membrane. We like to use a little bit when we pull that out just to show them what that syringe looks like.
This is an empty one. I don't have the syringe.
Oh, okay, all right. It does look inside there. It looks like a little syringe. People are saying, like, what do you mean? I have mine downstairs. I maybe if you start talking, I could run down and get mine. But just to understand, we put that in our mouth, or like you said, on our finger, put it in, and then we use a little MCT oil, kind of move it around your mouth to help the absorption. Talk a little bit about that, Doc, because the delivery is really important. And I'll run and get my syringe, okay?
Yeah, so the delivery and getting it absorbed into the body is actually quite interesting, and there have been a lot of studies about that. GW Pharmaceutical actually has a number of commercial products, and they've done quite a bit of research. Sativex is one that's being used for multiple sclerosis, and as a few other products. Well, their research into the absorption shows that it's probably best absorbed through the mucous membranes. Classically, we call that sublingual, but in fact, the best absorption occurs all around the mouth. So as long as you can hold it in your mouth, you're getting direct absorption right through the mucous membranes into the body. And so I ask people to do that for as long as possible, because we're talking about an absorption on a bioavailability of about 30%. So you get about 30% of what you put in your mouth comes directly into the bloodstream. So you're getting direct benefits into the brain and to the other portions of the body.
So, is it possible or is it helpful to take the product with some fat as well? Like some additional coconut oil, maybe an avocado, just to really help it absorb better?
Well, I think the MCT oil is probably ideal because even though with those people who have an impairment, we know that MCT oil is absorbed through the gut and doesn't require any digestion. So if people have poorly functioning gallbladders, then they will be able to absorb it through the gut lining without any particular processing. So MCT oil is particularly valuable, but other oils are important and effective in enhancing the absorption.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so here I got here's the MCT oil. We carry this. I like the glass bottle. This is from Nutrimedica on our website. And then this is so by the way, I just use even just a little cap. I'll fill that cap up, put it in my mouth. This is the syringe that we were referring to. So there it is, Elixinol 18%. This cap pops off, doesn't screw off. And then I'm just going to show you this. I'm going to push a little bit out. This dials how many milliliters, right, Doc? So there's 15 different 15 milliliters, and you said 1 milliliter is how much?
It's 180 milligrams.
Yeah, so a half a milliliter then is obviously 90 milligrams, and you said 5 milligrams per kilogram, correct?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Body weight. So
So an average woman is about 50 kilos, and
right.
so I typically I'm seeing about 250 milligrams a day, and then in divided dosage. But that again is for people with some fairly severe problems.
Yeah.
If we're talking about something as simple as Alzheimer's disease, really we only have to deal with 1/4 of a milliliter, and we're seeing profound results with that.
Wow.
1/4 of a milliliter. So there's 1 milliliter. So you could set it as 1/4. Now, I have found, Doc, that it's very difficult to push this out of. So I put mine under some hot water for a minute. What do you do, Doc? What's your suggestion?
I get the, yes, I do the same thing. I use immersion in hot water. But that particular syringe is being phased out for one that is much easier to use, comes in a clear syringe that'll be easy to express, and we don't have to go through the gyrations to get out this valuable oil. Right. Now, for people that need a less dose, like you said, we've talked about, conditions, even up to 250 milligrams in a day in divided doses. There is also a much easier form that is very good sublingual. We'll show that one, Meredith. I don't have that.
The tincture here.
Yeah, so that's the tincture. So talk about that, Doc.
Well, the tincture is more dilute. It's placed in MCT oil, and it does have a little bit of flavoring, so it's reasonably attractive and tasty, and it provides all of the same benefits. It just doesn't have the concentration. So using this and the concentration, I believe, is what's the concentration on that tincture?
Okay, so in half of a milliliter, there are 5 milligrams of CBD.
Okay, well that turns out to be an excellent dose for children as well as adults who have relatively minor problems, and interestingly it also applies to animals.
Wow.
And I've had clients use the two of them together because that makes a good taste. It smooths it out. So they use a dropper of that and a little bit of this.
Yes. I think that sounds like a good combination, and it should be very effective. I focus on the number of milligrams, and for sort of my medical background, trying to be consistent with the dosage. But combining those two and putting it into a favorable impact format is very, very good. The other thing I'll add is that there are other benefits of taking in omega-3 types of oils. I mentioned that they really work together with the endocannabinoid system and with CBD. So people should be getting sufficient amounts of omega-3. And one of the best places to get that is through the hemp oil. It has significant amounts of omega-3s that are well absorbed.
I love the balance. Hemp oil has a 4-to-1 ratio of omega-3 to omega-6, which just happens to be the ratio that targets the cell membrane, by the way. We know that certain ratios of omega-3 and omega-6 actually are specific for different conditions. For example, the brain the 4-to-1 ratio of 6-to-3 is the ratio that targets the brain. Matter of fact, it's really the ratio they say matters even more, than just taking too much omega-3, which can actually, throw you into omega-3 dominance. But hemp oil has the perfect ratio, ironically enough, that targets the brain and the cell membrane. So really interesting.
Well, now you know that they are both connected and they work through similar processes, and then they're both activating the endocannabinoid system. So it's an added benefit that you can capitalize on.
Yeah, it just makes, so much sense. So let's say that you're an athlete wanting to recover faster. What dose, Doc, what dose would you recommend?
That's an interesting question. I haven't had many athletes. Right now, I'm recommending 45 milligrams in a divided dose during the day, seeing how people respond. But you bring up a good point, is that everybody's going to respond differently. We've set some parameters and said, okay, well, this is about the right one. But for people who are using it and different conditions, they can tailor their application or the use depending on what they're experiencing, the benefits that they're receiving, and how far do they want to go. Since it really normalizes cell function, it's not like any other substance that you're taking in. You're not going to make you're not going to become a super athlete because of this. It's going to normalize and reduce the inflammation and the other problems that you might encounter, restoring natural and normal cell function.
No doubt. So out of this, what is 45 milligrams? How would they...
So that's a 1/4 milliliter.
So that would be a 1/4 milliliter. So every one of these things from 7 to 8, for example, is a milliliter, correct?
Correct.
So you would say about 1/4 of that, and you're giving that divided how many times during the day?
Well, typically 3 times during the day.
So 3 times during the day. So you would take 45 and divide it by 3 approximately. I mean, that's
correct.
Yeah, and that's for the average person, you're saying. Am I correct? Okay, good. So obviously with different conditions, you go all the way up, even up to 250, right? I mean, those are like severe conditions.
Well, that's a woman who has significant disease. For a man, we're really talking with an average weight of about 70 kilos, we're talking about 350.
Okay, yeah, those are good numbers to know for those types of conditions. And in that case, let's say 250 would be how much of the milliliter here that we roll out?
Well, if we just ballpark it, it's about 1.5 milliliters.
Okay, so 1.5 milliliters would be about right there. So yeah, so you see, you can adjust this. Each mark is a milliliter. So if I'm just telling people they can jot it down. They can rewatch the show. Just
for your athletes, the tincture may be a good place to start because that's 5 milliliter. It's 5 milligrams in 1/2 milliliter, and you can easily adjust the milliliters that you're giving in the syringe. In the bottle.
Meredith, correct me if I'm wrong. 1 full dropper then is 10 milligrams.
Correct.
Correct. Okay, good. So 10 milligrams. If you did 2 twice a day, you'd get about 40 milligrams.
Correct.
Yeah. Right. Okay. I'm just giving people an idea, just so they can, because I'm trying to bail Meredith off without getting a lot of calls, Meredith. That's why I'm doing this. Now you can just tell them, just watch the show, right? Meredith, just watch the show.
Send them the recording, yes. Now, could you give this to babies, the tincture, or the oil?
Yeah, we do it all the time, especially with epilepsy. Children who have not responded to other types of therapy. The average dose that we're seeing with kids is about 6.5 milligrams per kilogram. So if we're talking about a 30 kilogram child, which is that's not a baby, but we're talking about fairly significant doses. Absolutely no adverse effects from that. We haven't seen any problems as a result of very high doses in children. And there is no toxic dose that has been prescribed. So, or that has been found in any case. So, an infant, I don't see any particular problem specifically, but I don't have the research and I don't have the human studies to prove that.
Right. It almost seems too good to be true. If there's no drawbacks, all of these incredible benefits, are there really no contraindications with any dosage you found whatsoever with any health condition?
there are theoretical concerns, but I haven't found any in practice. Now, some people do respond with, if they're taking high doses, with an increase in fatigue. And so that's typical of your geriatric population. So you get over 80 and taking a pretty strong dose on the order of the 250 milligrams, they may become quite fatigued with it, in which case I always have them look at their other medications, though, because most commonly it's a matter of those other medicines being potentiated. So those other medicines are acting like they're stronger when in fact, and giving these symptoms, when in fact that's the issue, rather than being the CBD is causing the fatigue.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
And I have a question. What about just the typical healthy person that maybe isn't struggling with a chronic condition or isn't engaging in extreme exercise? Would this be a benefit just to add into the arsenal of a supplement you would take to enhance your health, or would it be worth it?
Well, I think it is, because we all face sort of foggy brain. We have difficulty getting going. We may have some sleeping or anxiety difficulties. What do we do now for those things? Well, you either take a pill, you take some Tylenol, take one of these other substances, and CBD will have the effect of improving cognition, helping recall, actually improving vision, and reducing inflammation. So there's a number of particular benefits for people who are absolutely normal but would like to use something to help them occasionally when they're feeling stressed. Why do people drink coffee? I mean, it's to get a boost, isn't it? Well, yeah. I mean, we're talking about the same thing. And then for smoking, look at how many smokers are out there who would love to quit, but they're addicted to the nicotine. Yeah. I mean, this is something that will block that nicotine craving and allow them to quit without looking back, with no cravings, and have them full function.
Well, it's funny you said that, because I had a patient that said their sugar cravings went away when they started using it. They were using it to help modulate their pain, and they realized all their cravings went away. So interesting you said that. Wow.
Well, sense. Even something more, and I think that there's a good applications for even just the tincture on insect stings, and even certain types of skin lesions that have occurred. I have reports from a health provider who used it on his basal cell cancer and resolved that basal cell cancer by using a topical application of a tincture.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, Meredith, listen, Doc, we are so grateful that you took your time and brought your expertise, with the CBD on our show, and I know our viewers are extremely grateful as well. And Meredith, just remind them, because people obviously want to order, the product, and this is organic and it's guaranteed at 18% CBD, and that's why we've chosen it for sure. And we really have teamed up with Elixinol to bring this product to as many people as we can, because we believe in it.
Yeah,
thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with you about this, because this is my passion. This is extraordinary in terms of its ability to revolutionize medication, medical care, and medical health for the entire world.
Well, you know what? We'd love to have you back too, because there's a lot of things we could focus in on just even one area, and so we'll do that in the future. So go ahead, Meredith, sign us off and remind them just what to do to get it.
I will, and I do want to thank you again, Dr. Blair. You are such a wealth of information, and your passion shines through on this topic. So just thank you so much for sharing with us and our audience. I know I learned so much today. And actually, breaking news here, we just got our website set up for the CBD oil, so now you can order it online. It is takecbdoil.com. So that's takecbdoil.com. So you can go online and order the syringe, like we talked about right here, or the tincture. We're going to have both of those available. The syringe is non-flavored, and we have a natural flavor and a cinnamon flavor of the tincture. And you can also give us a call to at 888-600-0642 if you're interested in ordering over the phone. So thanks again, Dr. Blair. Thank you so much, Dr. Pompa. Awesome show, amazing information, and we'll see you next week.